Fighting business, it's like the stock market. It's fluctuate, you know?
With rugged landscapes, dangerous wildlife, and some of the coldest temperatures ever recorded, it's no surprise Canada has hosted some of the toughest fighters in MMA history. And who better to talk about their very best than one of their own?
Thanks, Carl. Yes, the boys up north have given MMA some of its most memorable figures, and in today's video, we take a look at some of the very best. Welcome to the INC, and these are the 5 greatest Canadian MMA fighters. Number 5. Carlos Newton. With 16 wins and 14 losses, Carlos Newton seems like an unlikely name to start this list. But those at the time remember the Ronin as one of the most important fighters in Canadian MMA. Newton was part of Canadian MMA since the very beginning and one of the first students of Canada's first MMA academy. In 1998, Newton took on fellow rookie Kazushi Sakuraba at Pride 3. Despite losing in the second round, Newton's performance saw him earn praise from fans and fighters alike, and is still considered one of the best MMA fights ever for jiu-jitsu fans. Newton's brand of Dragon Ball Jiu-Jitsu saw him become one of the sport's most exciting fighters, winning 4 of his next 5 in Pride, including wins over Jose Lande Jones and Renzo Gracie. The run of form led Newton to the UFC, where he took on welterweight champion Pat Miletich in the co-main of UFC 31, winning by 3rd round submission and becoming the first Canadian champion in company history.
Looking to lock it in. There's the tap. It's over. Wow. Carlos Newton has choked out Pat Miletich, and we have a new world welterweight champion.
Newton remained a respected figure in MMA until his retirement in 2010, and these days works as a jiu-jitsu coach, architect, and this.
Are you Carlos Newton?
Yes, I am Carlos Newton.
The Carlos Newton?
Yes, the Carlos Newton.
Aren't you an MMA champion?
Yes, I am Carlos Newton, your personal MMA mortgage agent.
Number 4. Mark Hominick. No fighter showed Canadian grit better than Ontario's Mark Hominick, turning him from out-of-form journeyman to one of the toughest fighters in the featherweight division. Hominick made his early tenure with the Canadian promotion TKO, winning the company's featherweight title and successfully defending on 3 occasions, before spells with Affliction and the UFC between 2006 and 2008. After sliding to a 13-7 record, Hominick saw his career transform in WEC, where his crisp boxing, high speed, and submission offense saw him become a star of 145, and claim wins over Leonard Garcia, Brian Caraway, and a Fight of the Night performance with Yves Jaboulin. After beating George Roop at Fight Night 23, Hominick achieved his finest hour when he took on Jose Aldo at UFC 129 in the company's first featherweight title fight. In front of 55,000 fans, Hominick gave a performance worthy of the occasion, holding his own against the Brazilian before succumbing to a unanimous decision. Hominick retired in 2012 with 20 wins and 12 losses. But his exciting style and role as an MMA trainer makes him a central figure to the next generation of Canadian fighters. Number 3. Patrick Cote. While Anthony Johnson's retirement stole the headlines at UFC 210, Canadian fans celebrated the career of Patrick Cote, whose knockout power and mental toughness kept him near the sport's pinnacle for 13 years. Cote's resilience was trademarked from the start, when on 4 days' notice, he took on MMA legend Tito Ortiz in the main event of UFC 50, losing by unanimous decision, before returning to regionals where he amassed an 8-0 record. After appearing on the 4th season of The Ultimate Fighter, Cote returned to the UFC in 2007, where wins over Scott Smith, Kendall Grove, and Ricardo Almeida saw him earn a title shot at UFC 90 against Anderson Silva. A succession of knee issues left many feeling Cote was done as a top-level fighter, but a move to welterweight saw the Predator embark on an unlikely turnaround, winning 6 of his next 7 fights and becoming a top 10 stable despite entering his late 30s. Despite ending his career on a low note, Cote remains active in MMA, working as an analyst for French-Canadian television and holding a respected record of 23 wins and 11 losses. Number 2. Rory MacDonald. British Columbia's Rory MacDonald represents a new breed of Canadian fighter, combining hard striking and elite wrestling into a successful tenure with the UFC and beyond. Fighting was ingrained in MacDonald from the beginning, competing in his first pro fight at the age of 16, and amassing a 10-0 record by the time he left his teens. The promise saw MacDonald earn a call to the UFC, where he took on WEC welterweight champion Carlos Condit in only his second fight with the promotion. MacDonald would lose a back-and-forth match in the third round, but his strength of character against top opposition earmarked him as a star of the future. Over the next 5 years, MacDonald would justify the hype, winning 8 of his next 9 fights against some of the sport's biggest names, including Nate Diaz, BJ Penn, and a fight of the night performance against Damian Maia.
This may do it! Rory MacDonald with the stoppage win! How about it?
The run of form saw MacDonald earn a title shot against Robbie Lawler at UFC 189. In one of the best fights in company history, MacDonald and Lawler went toe-to-toe in a brutal matchup for the ages, before the bloodied Canadian succumbed to strikes a minute into the final round. In 2016, MacDonald signed with Bellator, debuting with one of the most one-sided high-level fights in Bellator against Paul Daly. MacDonald scored the first major title of his career with a decision win over Douglas Lima, one he hopes to defend in the company's welterweight Grand Prix next year. And at number 1, Gillian Robertson. Just kidding, it's GSP. George St Pierre can make a claim as not only the greatest Canadian fighter, but arguably the greatest man to ever set foot in the octagon. GSP's potential was evident from the beginning. By the time of his pro debut, the young Quebecer was a karate black belt with forays into boxing and jiu-jitsu, and claiming 5 successive finishes while competing for the regional promotion UCC. When the call came to join the UFC in 2004, GSP didn't need asking twice, dominating some of the world's top welterweights with a cerebral ground game and fanatical approach to conditioning, and seeing him claim his first UFC championship with a win over Hall of Famer Matt Hughes. Winning the title would only spur GSP further, breaking the record for most wins in UFC history and claiming 9 straight title defenses without losing a single round. During this time, GSP would avenge the 2 blemishes of his career, defeating Hughes in a rubber match at UFC 79, before a one-sided destruction of Matt Serra in front of his home crowd. After 4 years away, GSP returned to the sport in 2017, taking on middleweight champion Michael Bisping in the main event of UFC 217. The French-Canadian showed he hadn't missed a step, outstriking the Brit for the majority of the fight before winning by third-round submission, and in doing so becoming the 5th man to win UFC titles in 2 weight classes.
George St Pierre has done it! He is the new UFC middleweight champion!
GSP's dominance, combined with his classy demeanor, has seen his legacy all but confirmed. There was no other viable candidate when it came to MMA's greatest Canadian. Sorry, Gillian. And now time for a few honorable mentions. Sarah Kaufman was a pioneer of women's MMA, amassing a 20-4 record and claiming titles in Strikeforce and Invicta. Gary Goodridge was responsible for one of the most famous knockouts in MMA history.
Oh my, elbows in number by Goodridge, and that is it.
Justin Trudeau beat Patrick Brazeau in a boxing match in 2012. Now, whatever happened to him? This is the INC, and thank you for watching.